So I'd like you just for a minute to go back, oh, goodness knows how many years, but at least 20 years, right? And when I first started to going to big university meetings, such as Senate and Council and all kinds of stuff like that. And my experience of those was certainly at first feeling like this squeaky little girl that sat at the end. I do remember my first Senate meeting, which was heaving with people, and you couldn't get a seat, and everybody seemed to know everybody. It was all bonhomie, and and I thought, God, what am I doing here? Why am I here? Actually, as a member of this committee, why am I here? It was one of those questions. But so nervously, I wouldn't speak at all. And of course, I'm sure most or all of us have had these kinds of experiencing of being man-interrupted, mansplained, manspreading, all of that stuff that actually, all of which conspire to make poor meeting etiquette. So aside from all the inclusion things, so I turn up at a meeting the first time, nobody introduces me, nobody says a word to me, it's just like, this is not good etiquette, really. And then people jump in and they speak over you, and, where I've got is actually these are very, very performative spaces, actually. And fundamentally, what a waste of knowledge, experience, talent, and so on. So many of you may have heard of her, but there is a coaching, you'd probably call her a coaching guru, really, called Nancy Kline, start with a Kline. And she has a couple of books, one of which is called Time to Think. And of course, one of the things we really don't have in this environment anymore is time to think. Yes, absolutely time to think. It is significantly missing as we're reactive and we, respond to everything that's going on around us. And basically she says, everything we do begins with thinking. If our thinking is good, our decisions are good, our actions are good, and our outcomes are good. So how do we create a meeting environment where there is good thinking? Is one of the fundamental questions she addresses. Because I have chaired so many meetings and I've been to hundreds, God, maybe even thousands, where you sit there and you want no decision made. I mean, at one point when I was chairing meetings, we'd celebrate we'd made a decision, all of that stuff. So how do you create an environment that is going to enable people to think? So I'm just going to give you 5 of the principles she has 10 of Nancy Kline, where you can see how inclusive her approach is. And the first one is equality. We regard each other as thinking peers, giving equal time to think. And again, think about those meetings you've been to and think, who am I to say? What do I have to say of value? We treat everybody as equals, as valued members to think with. We encourage each other as thinkers. So we give, courage to go to unexplored edges of our thinking by ceasing being in competition. And again, think of most meetings you go to where someone has to get their thing in and say what they have to say. They're in competition for the space and the air and everything else. Difference. Prioritizing the diversity of group identities and understanding their lived experience. Attention, and this is key to all of Nancy Kline's work. Listening without interruption and with interest to hear where the person's thinking will go next. And finally, the 5th one I've selected is feelings. Allowing emotion, welcoming it, right, in the room, because it tells us so much. So to finish, the easiest way to run a meeting, and once I'd been introduced to this work, this is how I used to chair meetings, is this. You start with the positive. What has been going well? Because most people who turn up at meetings, in my experience, will be talking about all the problems they're experiencing. Sit with the silence. People are shocked when you ask what's going well, till some brave soul puts their hand up and says something. It might be something personal that's going well in their life. But actually, this positive psychology approach really changes the dynamic. Opening the discussion, start with rounds. That means you go round the table, clock or anti-clockwise, to ensure everyone speaks. You set that up from the beginning. You say, we're going to listen to every person in this meeting without interruption. And so you invite people to speak, maybe for 2 minutes on a topic on the agenda, maybe for 3, depends how much time you have. But key is you listen exquisitely and attentively, and you do not interrupt. And then you close with the positive. What was useful or helpful? What did you appreciate with each other's contributions? And just by taking those small steps, you can transform the meeting space to create a far more inclusive environment, where what you're doing is actually hearing and learning from your colleagues to create a better thinking environment. And that's what I wanted to share with you today. Thank you. And thank you for listening. Thank you.